Well, Douglas Feith, the former Undersecretary of Defense Policy under President George W. Bush, joining me right now. You know, Douglas, I'm listening to the president tonight, and I'm reminded about all the things that have to fall into place to keep our commitment to eventually get all our troops out of there by the end of next year. Iraq has to get control of things, right? Can it?
Well, it's part of the strategy, and it's been the strategy even before President Obama came into office, to try to build up the capabilities of the Iraqi government, the military capabilities, police capabilities, and even the general political capabilities. We see right now that the Iraqis have not been able for months now to form a government, and that's that's part of the bumpy road that they're on to try to create self-government for themselves. Anyway, those are very large challenges, and you're right. It's not certain that they'll do it, but they've been moving in a pretty hopeful direction over recent months and years.
Maybe so, but I'm reminded of an interview you had earlier this month in which you said, if they can succeed and if the administration remains flexible and does what it needs to do, I think there is some basis for hoping that Iraq is able to handle its own problems going forward. But isn't that just the rap against this so-called caretaker government right now, that it cannot, and with increased violence, it consistently has proven that it does not?
Well, I think what the president said tonight was that the United States has an ongoing role to try to help the Iraqis, and I think he's correct there. What I was concerned about, though, in the president's talk is the president has not spent a lot of time explaining to the American people what our interest is in maintaining that role, and it makes me concerned, because if the president is not really making the case for what the American interest is in remaining in Iraq, even in the more limited capacity that he says we're going to be in for coming months, there's a real danger that the American people will not understand what we're trying to do there. I'll call attention to one very interesting omission from tonight's speech. Earlier today, when the president spoke to soldiers at Fort Bliss, he said that as a result of our work in Iraq, not only does Iraq have an opportunity to create a better future for itself, but he said America is more secure. Now, that helps explain to the American people what we're doing in Iraq. We're helping to make America more secure. It's interesting that when he used that same formulation, the same paragraph in tonight's speech, he dropped the phrase, America is more secure. I think failing to make the case to the American people what the real stakes are for the United States in Iraq. And I think he did it because his political base doesn't approve acknowledgments like that.
Well, it also is something that he has often stated on the campaign trail, running for the office that he now holds, that he believed the Iraq war was always a diversion from our real focus on terror and presumably its viper's nest in Afghanistan. That's neither here nor there, as you point out, Douglas, but I am a little curious to get your reaction as to his comments regarding President Bush. I want you to listen to this because it did not involve the surge itself. Listen to this.
This afternoon I spoke to former President George W. Bush. It's well known that he and I disagreed about the war from its outset. Yet no one can doubt President Bush's support for our troops or his love of country and commitment to our security. As I've said, there were patriots who supported this war and patriots who opposed it. And all of us are united in appreciation for our servicemen and women and our hopes for Iraqi's future.
I think that's as close as he came, Douglas, to complimenting the president, minus, the big elephant in the room, the surge that was so controversial.
Well, that's right. I think that President Obama did a good thing in delivering some gracious words about President Bush, but he did avoid the point that not only did President Bush show a lot of judgment and courage in supporting the surge, but that Barack Obama himself vehemently and repeatedly opposed the surge, and in fact, in January of 2007, proposed legislation that would have ended the war in March of 2008, so that we would not have gotten the benefits of the surge. It would have guaranteed a serious defeat in Iraq. And I think it's for that reason that the president chose to avoid the whole subject. It's obviously a problem and an embarrassment for him.
Yeah, one way or the other, there's no upside politically to say that. Douglas Feith, very good seeing you. Thank you very much.
Good to talk to you.
Well, Robert McFarland,